done if you compare it to other democracies and other jurisdictions from a comparative perspective, and even contextualizing it to our setting. There are definitely things that could be done which could improve it. But for a start for the year, or for the presidency, or for this term, I would say it was way above average. 85%, 80, 90%. I think
that's a pretty high score.
Pretty good. Yeah.
For if you were the advisor to the presidency and a communication expert, would you advise for such an engagement to be done 8-9 months into government? The timing.
Yes, so I even think that it was good timing. Probably earlier is good. 9 months from an idealistic perspective, 9 months is even way too long.
Way too long.
Yes, from an idealistic perspective, 9 months is way too long. But if you just want to contextualize it and then find out, well, maybe they were trying to settle down, there were disasters and crises that came, there were things that, the business of government is it's a very active process. There were a lot of traveling president. This is first time. So maybe they just felt like, hey, this might be a good time to do it. But from a from the standardized perspective, 9 months, it's even too long to do that, because there were definitely issues that needed public explanation. There were definitely issues of national controversy or national debate. There were issues that people wanted to hear the president's stance and the president's position on it. And so doing a press conference even before these 9 months would have afforded the president the opportunity to address these issues before they dragged on too long, right? So I think it was just about okay, but maybe a lot more of these is helpful. I think that we've had just limited.
What would you prescribe to be the most appropriate frequency?
Every government has to make their decision, but if I were advising, I would say quarterly is okay to begin with, if they did this quarterly, because you see, when that happens, it takes care of a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of us felt as if the time was not enough, even though it was in the evening. They had spent, I don't know, maybe a little over 2 hours, or
I think it was about 2 hours, 30 minutes.
Thank you.
A bit.
Yes, yeah. That's long enough, but we still felt that it was short time, was limited, because a lot of people didn't get their questions in, and the president couldn't also get time to address other issues. So you see, when you do it regularly, it prevents the avalanche or the too many things from building up before then coming to meet the journalist over a long period of time. In that case, there'll be a lot of things that have happened, a lot of things that people need answers to, and lots of questions. But when you do it regularly, what happens is that all those issues are addressed. Some of these issues could have even been addressed earlier on. And then by the time the next one comes, there are just a few more issues to deal with. So I do think that having it regularly would be good. Even in other places, there's no strict rule to it. Press conferences, we like to call it media encounters, but it's a form of a presidential press conference, right? Are held sometimes to address specific issues. So if you look at other places, as and when the issue happens, the presidential press conference is held, and then it addresses that particular issue, and it goes very much so journalists get a time to go into detail, because it's event specific, it's issue specific. Although there's also room for the regular broad-based encounters or press conference. So when you mix it up that way, there are a lot more opportunities to question the president, which is important, because the president has to be seen as answerable to the people of the country. He has to be able to account for the way in which he is leading the country. The journalists and the public need to be able to track the growth of the presidency and the way in which the country is being run on a normal basis, on a daily basis. And it's also a form of information dissemination as well to the public. So I think a combination of all of these would help. He could even do it when he goes to another region. If there's a crisis and he goes to, I don't know, Volta, Ashanti, wherever, he can take that opportunity to do the press conference over there. Then that also affords journalists in those regions the opportunity to ask questions, and then it becomes more broad-based. So there's no hard and fast rule to it. There are different ways of doing this kind of stuff, right? And which helps to fulfill the goal, like the overall goal of making sure that the president is answerable to the people.
Okay. Now the president responded to every question. We've had previous instances where the president probably brings in other ministers or sector ministers to be responding to sector-specific questions. But in this instance, the president was the one responding to everything. The president was the one virtually giving responses. What would you say would be the best approach? The president standing as the number one, responding to all questions, or bringing in experts to speak specifically so they can speak in depth into the issues?
Again, I get where you're coming from, but there's no hard and fast rule. It depends. But a typical presidential press conference or a typical media encounter, the staple is that the president should be the one fielding the questions and the answers. Because you see, the thing about this is that there are other things to it. It helps us to see the leadership style of the president. It helps us to see the president's temperament. It helps us to get an insight into the president's thinking. It helps us to see how the president is handling issues on his own, how he's able to answer questions on the spur of the moment, and how his thinking abilities, to follow the track of his thinking abilities and all of that. So, and also he has the bully pulpit. So everything ends up falling on him. So I think that Ghanaians want to see their president. They want to see him have the final word, answer the questions, and because once he speaks, that becomes policy.
Now, this will put pressure on future presidents that you need to be all of a sudden all-knowing.
I've not ended. But there may be other times. For instance, if it's a crisis situation or there is a very technical or specific event, an event-driven situation or a very specific, yes, that even when it brings other people, it plays to his advantage. For instance, the COVID-19 or a public health crisis or something. Yes, you have the president come to speak, but then there are technocrats. They are professionals, expertise, who we can always call on. Yeah, in that case, the issue of delegation, the issue of specificity happens, and these professionals are able to come and answer it. But in this particular situation where it's not nothing is instigating it, no event is, precipitating it. It's just a standard, regular presidential media encounter. I think people want to see their president respond to it. I don't think it puts pressure because he's the commander-in-chief, he's the chief executive. His statements literally are policy. And so, of course, he does not have technical expertise in everything, but then he provides the leadership or the template. And so he needs to be, people want to see him answering those questions.
Earlier you mentioned how Felix managed the coordination. There are two or different schools of thought. One school of thought is saying that if we have such a moderator, because that person knows the press call, it's very easy for the person to pick which people are pro and which people are against. So rather than asking that moderator to be the one, why not allow the president who does not know to be the ones to call people to ask him the questions?
Good idea. It might be one and the same because, yes, the press secretary or the minister of government communication, as we call them here, and they might have that relationship or that familiarity with them. I don't know to what extent that might bias it, but from your question, that might be some people's thinking. Now, the president. If you watch President Obama or some of the U.S. presidents field the questions, they literally, because they do it very regularly, and because the press corps accompanies them, they literally know who the journalist is. They know who the AP journalist is. They know who the ABC journalist is. They know who the CNN journalist is. So it's the same thing with the president. Probably has fielded questions from these journalists on different occasions. Yeah, he has a long history of communication and media. Probably knows these people. So it might not completely address that situation, although he doesn't know all of them. It might temper it a little bit, but I don't think it completely eliminates it. But I do get the concern, that once you have a government communication minister who has that familiarity and knows them, I can get that concern. So maybe as we grow, we need to fashion out a system that is more that gives everybody the chance, an equal chance of selection. Maybe they could have a system where they are randomly selected, blindly and randomly selected, even before the event, when they arrive there, so that it doesn't have to, there's no human element in terms of the picking. So a certain form of random selection. Yes, blinded random selection process would make it a bit more random.
On this issue about selection, maybe I'll push you a bit. How best do you think the selection or selecting of which media houses should be present for this encounter to be done? How do you think is best? Because, I mean, everything that was done was English. And so I'm even wondering what section of the Ghanaian populace even understood what went on. So how do you think this selection has to be done so that we know that it's homogeneous enough, it represents a greater portion of the people, and it represents a cross-section of the media fraternity that we have?
Yes, thank you. See, when we did this press conference, and by the way, we were the first to do a communicative-centric analysis of presidential press conferences in Ghana, going back to 2016. What President Kufuor did was more of a people's assembly. It wasn't just the media. You had the people there. So we did this in 2016, and that was one of our findings in terms of the geographical diversity of the questions that were asked, or representation of the journalists. Now, in order to address this, and I think it's linked to the previous question you asked, there could be a team, or a team of academics or professionals, like people who are not related, have any affiliation or working directly for the government as ministers. They could sort of form a supportive team to help moderate in terms of the selection of the questions, even as the journalists arrive. I mean, it could be as simple as a very simple random selection process where media houses' names are written and then they are randomly selected, or a more systematic process is used, a systematic random. I mean, there are very good processes that we can use to achieve this. But then we have to be conscious about the diversity in terms of representation, in terms of geography and regional representation. That one should not be left too much to chance. I think that has to be consciously engineered to the extent that there could be a time where we could have 2 journalists from every region come in there. We could have a time when we make sure that the selection is regional based. And so you have a room full of journalists, but then there is a certain form of equal representation from all the regions in the country. Like I said, there are also other ways in which the president could go to the regions and have these presidential press conferences. And so the questions are fielded from the regions and people. And it doesn't, I mean, if the president finds himself there, it doesn't have to be a whole event organized that we are going to do. But if the president finds himself in that region, he could make an hour or 2, and then meet the press and have an encounter with them. If it has to be in Accra, there could be a conscious process to get equal representation from all the regions. And so you have a room full of journalists, but it's not like, once you're in Accra, you can come. But there are specific numbers of people from the regions. I think that would be beautiful to see, so that things that concern people in the other regions, they can get it in terms of the questioning.
Some schools of thought are also of the opinion that this is just a charade. Because in recent times, there's been too much cry of media freedom. So this was just a PR gimmick. It really was not an activity to deepen governance as we think it is. As a communication expert, what's your response?
I do not agree with that. It definitely is not a charade. I think a presidential press conference is a very important feature of the modern presidency or modern democracy. Unless we have a democracy which remains answerable to the people of the country, unless we have a democracy in which journalists can face the president publicly and ask him very direct, pointed, well-focused, tough questions, unless we have a president who feels that he needs to watch his back or be careful what he does, because at the end of the day, the people remain the most important variable in our democracy, and that he has to go back and account to them, then we do not have a functional democracy. And so to whatever extent or to whatever purpose that it serves, the optics, the symbolism of seeing your president stand there and field these questions from the journalists, I think that it goes a very, very long way to deepen the democracy. It goes a long way to fulfill the accountability measure of democracy, and it goes a very long way to also make sure that the press are performing, or the media is performing its responsibility of holding the government's feet to the fire and holding the government accountable for the work that they do. So to all intents and purposes, I think it should be continued. I actually think that we should find a way to legislate it or to make it policy where whether a president does a press conference or not is not left to his own whims and caprices, or is not left to his own decision, but then it becomes then a requirement or an expectation of the presidency to regularly present themselves to the people of the country and field questions. This is different from State of the Nation, where you come and give a laundry list. State of the Nation, you do not take questions. But this is a very extraordinary and a very unique political communicative tool which we can take advantage of to help deepen our democracy.
My last question to you on this. So if, again, I'll come back to if you are being made a consultant, and I mean, you've mentioned a few, but I just want you to hit like about three, like a bullet point. What three key reforms would you suggest is done to make this more effective and efficient going forward?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think there are quite a number of them. I hope I can remember, but three, at least let me go with the three.
I mean, you can start with three and
yeah,
you build on.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the major things would be in terms of the regional and geographical representation. I would, if you ask me to select out of everything that we've talked about so far, I'll go back to that. I think some of the regions have been shortchanged in terms of getting their issues and their concerns in. And there are very, very specific issues that lie, I mean, at the very survival of our countrymen and women in the countryside and in different places. And as we see, all politics is local. And so we need to make that conscious effort to make sure that we get that regional diversity or representation in as much as possible. The second key reform that I think we should do is in terms of the regularity of the press conferences. They should be done more regularly, preferably quarterly, or even more frequent than that. So in terms of the regularity of it, that's the second thing. And then in terms of so that's in terms of the format, I mean the structure of it. Now in terms of the format, I mean that was in terms of the diversity of it. Now in terms of the structure and the format, I think we'd want to see a more random process of selection of the journalists to make sure that it is an objective process in terms of the selection. The selection of the journalists are as objective as much as possible to prevent any biases, so that the people, I mean, in Ghana or the people watching at home would not feel as if, because if that selection process is not seen as unbiased, if it's not an objective process, that is when people will begin to get the feeling that it is a charade or it is just something that they are doing to take a box. But if people feel that the questions are very pointed, they are very specific, they are very focused, then it will serve the people of Ghana well. So I think that in terms of the quality of the questions that are being asked, there should be it should continue to improve. And I think that is when we would have these press conferences serve the kind of purpose that they do. So, yeah, in terms of the diversity, in terms of the moderation and selection of questions, and then in terms of the regularity of it, this would be the top three.
Okay, so regional balance, the regularity, which is the frequency of organizing it, the process of selecting the journalists, and then also the moderation and the quality of questions being asked. Okay, thank you very much. So Professor SIKANKU is the Associate Professor of Political Communications and Media Studies. He's a Dean at the Faculty of Journalism and Media Studies, University of Media Arts and Communication, UnMAC. Prof, thank you very much. We'll be watching, viewers will be watching a few excerpts from the Meet the Press, so that we would probably identify some of the things that Prof said in here. So if we can have some of the videos on screen to see some response.
I've been reluctant to implement a state of emergency in the Galamsey fight because we've not exhausted the powers we even have without a state of emergency. We have the opportunity to arrest anybody, to confiscate any such thing. There are laws for forest protection and all that give us enough powers to be able to act. Implementing a state of emergency might sound nice, but it should be the last extreme, the last resort. So for now, let's exercise all the powers we have. And if it becomes necessary for a state of emergency, then we'll look at it. It means we have to go to Parliament. The president can't just declare a state of emergency without, going to Parliament, because there's a limit to how long you can maintain that state of emergency. And so I believe that we still have leverage to continue to fight Galamsey without necessarily implementing a state of emergency. It means that we have to delineate the areas where the state of emergency is operational. And if you look at the area where Galamsey is taking place, it covers several districts of our country. And so we would do it if it becomes necessary. But for now, I think that we've given the security services enough powers to be able to deal with people who are found to be involved in Galamsey. With regards to excavators, we're enforcing the law that you must get the permits before the excavator is put on a ship. That is what the law has been, but it was not followed. And so they let the excavator land before they come and ask the Ministry of Transport for a permit. And so we've informed all the dealers that you cannot load an excavator onto a ship until you have gotten a permit. In the meantime, a lot of excavators have arrived at the port. And recently, somebody said they were being released at midnight to their owners and things. That's not true. What happens was there were so many that they had occupied a huge area of the port and congested the port. And so we found the land near Shy Hills, near the military installation. And the Field Engineers Regiment and others have been given charge to move the excavators from the port to that area so that they can free up space in the port. And they do that in the night because of traffic in the daytime. So in the night, they have the payloaders moving the excavators out of the port to the designated areas where they are supposed to be held. And before any of those excavators is released, they must be tracked, they must have a tracker on them, they must be registered by the owner of the excavator, and we must know the purpose for which the excavator has been imported. Because the construction industry also imports excavators. And so you cannot put a blanket ban on importation of excavators just because you think that every excavator is going to go into the illegal mining industry. Even the big mining companies that have licenses import excavators. And so we want to know who is importing the excavators, who it is going to. We want to be able to put a tracker on it and be able to trace that excavator wherever it is in the country. We called off the IGP occasional review of tariffs. And when these tariffs are about to be reviewed, proposals are requested from the utility organizations. And so I noted that recently Ghana Water presented their proposal, and Electricity Company of Ghana also presented their proposal. It doesn't mean that the proposal they present is what is going to be implemented. We have the regulator, which is the PRC, that looks at all the factors, including the exchange rates, including the cost of production and all that, before they determine what increase in tariff is allowed. And so the fact that you hear that water company says they're going to increase by 200 and something percent does not necessarily mean that PRC is going to allow them to do that. We have survived without going to the capital markets. We've survived without borrowing. Who could have thought some years ago that Ghana's economy could be run without going to the external market to borrow? And yet, we've survived. And so we shouldn't be in a hurry to go back to the capital market. All we've done is to reorder our expenditure and push funds to areas that are of priority. And so that's all we've done. Fiscal discipline, not spending money on wasteful, political interventions and all that. And that is already showing the successes in the market. I mean, we've gone from negative 3.4% on the primary balance to positive 1.1 as at now. And by the end of the year, we'll achieve the target. I'm sure we'll overachieve the target of positive 1.5.
This bar.
Welcome back. So in studio, I have with me across the table is Nanaya Sarpong. He's a political assistant to Alain Kyerematen of the Movement for Change. Good morning, Nanaya.
Good morning, my brother.
I hope you're good. Right. Next to him is Bernard Mona, the leader of the PMC. General, I salute.
I take him.
3-star General.
How are you keeping?
God is good.
I see you are smiling a lot this morning.
Yes. Okay. Grace has found me, like Nanaya just said.
Okay. I don't know whether it is spiritual grace.
Yes, it's spiritual. No other grace.
Or economic grace.
Spiritual grace.
Or
everything that happens in the physical happens in the spiritual.
First.
For grace to find you.
Yes.
You would.
No, I know where Bernard wants to go. I will allow him to go there. Next to Bernard is HAMZA SUHUYINI. He's a lawyer and a member of the national communication team of the NDC. My brother, good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
I hope you're good. It's always nice to see you.
Yes.
Once you're here, I know how the discussion will get this. And as earlier introduced Dr. Bota, he's a former national deputy national organizer of the NPP and also a lecturer at the UPSA. This time I got it right. I took the youth away.
You got it right.
Right. So HAMZA, I'll start with you.
You failed to add that he was also coincidentally shown the exit by the New Patriotic Party. The party is alleged.
The man is here. He has not added that. But you want to give him a profile.
But I'm glad to know that he's back to the fold. You are dealing with a political party that over the last 8 years, or even you like 16 years, demonstrated their unwillingness to entertain dissent. And there were those who wanted to express their views regardless of the political implications it should have had on the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. So just like my brother here, he was also sidelined. Thankfully, as a true patriot that he is, he's back to the fold and he's championing the cause of the New Patriotic. But I comment.
So Nanaya is not a true patriot. Nanaya, they say you're a false patriot.
You're not a true patriot.
No, he's asking whether you mean Nanaya is not a true patriot. Good, I like that.
He is. And when I say a true patriot, it's not just about the NPP's definition of patriotism. It has
the national definition of patriotism.
Because, of course, he's back to contribute his quota to the national.
So, HAMZA, our president within the week met the press. One of the topics that came up, one of the questions that was asked had to do with Galamsey.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of public discussions subsequent to this engagement, some for, some against, some reminding the president of things that were said before the elections, calling for state of emergency from the current, I think, the environment minister said something like that. Even the president himself said something like that. And now all of a sudden the president is saying that, well, state of emergency, this is not the right time to call a state of emergency. Generally, as the National Democratic Congress, what's your position on this issue about Galamsey?
Permit me to drop in this correction. There's nowhere, not even in our archives, that you can find His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama in opposition calling for a declaration of state of emergency. I think that point needs to be made very clear. Indeed, there were certain leading members of the National Democratic Congress who at the time agreed with the concerns raised by civil society organizations and actually impressed upon the previous regime to call for a state of emergency. That point needs to be made. But if you look at the position of the National Democratic Congress prior to the 2024 general elections, I think that we're quite clear. It was not the National Democratic Congress that led the cause for a declaration of state of emergency. This was done by civil society organizations like UTAG and many other organizations for that matter. But you see, I also acknowledge that even in our silence, many of us as NDC activists indirectly supported that call. That point needs to be made. But interestingly, in our manifesto, remember that we had about 25 promises that we intended to do in our first 100 days. Nowhere has it been captured in that manifesto that indeed the National Democratic Congress in the first 100 days in office would declare a state of emergency. His Excellency President Mahama was forceful in his position that there was the need for government to show commitment as far as the issue of Galamsey is concerned, and that the fight had to be holistic and sustainable. And these knee-jerk reactions of only going for those who are in the pits, he was emphatic that that was not the way to ending the illegal mining menace. And for him as president, his focus would be on the actual financiers, those who finance these young people to be in the pits in the name of digging for gold. And that if as a republic we're actually committed to the fight against Galamsey, we should be interested in looking out for these people. And that as president, he would ensure that political will that we're all complaining about is brought to bear as far as that fight is concerned. And you would agree with me that His Excellency President Mahama, upon assumption of office, has not faltered even one bit as far as that commitment is concerned. Look, it was clear that there was the need for us to have a stakeholder engagement, even with our traditional leaders, who at a point in time were accused of participating under the guise of community mining in illegal mining activities. And so you needed, as a responsible government, to first of all engage. You would notice that upon the appointment of the Honorable Amakofu-Bua, the first thing he did was to kickstart the stakeholder engagement process with our traditional leaders and the youth of these identified mining communities. Then we proceeded, as a way of demonstrating that political commitment, we proceeded to launch the Blue Water Guards, where many of these young people who would have ended up in the pits were given livelihood opportunities to serve as an integral part of the fight against illegal mining. Information, monitoring and information. And their activities eventually led to the discovery of a community that many of us didn't even know existed in our forests because of the activities of the Blue Water Guards. Again, quite apart from that, remember that His Excellency President Mahama also recently launched a livelihood alternative initiative geared towards empowering many of these guys in the mining sector. Unfortunately, it was that same program that our fallen heroes were attending when the plane crash happened. The helicopter crash happened. So clearly, the commitment to the fight against illegal mining is there. Again, we have the anti-Galamsey task forces that are on the grounds. A number of excavators have been seized. Unlike we used to experience in the past, these excavators can be accounted for. In order to forestall the activities of those who are still committed to illegal mining, especially with the use of excavators, it is not for the beautification of the process that His Excellency President Mahama has also directed a licensing regime and monitoring regime for those who import excavators into the country. Today, there's a tracking mechanism in place to ensure that the excavators that are imported into this country, we are able to track it and to be sure that they are not used in our water bodies and our forest reserves. And it is also interesting to note that His Excellency President Mahama, as a result of that committed fight against illegal mining, we've been able to restore about 7 of our forest reserves to retrieve. That in the past was clearly in the hands of illegal mining. You cannot also say with certainty.
I thought it was 9.
9. I said, did I say 9?
You said 7.
7. Oh, sorry, 9. So you cannot also, my brother, make references to all these efforts without also commending the way the presidency has conducted itself. Today, we cannot sit around this table and allege that there are presidential staffers who are neck deep when it comes to issues of illegal mining, because His Excellency President Mahama, from the word go, indicated his unwillingness to tolerate that as far as the Jubilee House is concerned. In the past, that used not to be the case. We used to wake up on a daily basis to allegations of presidential staffers against presidential staffers who were actually engaged in illegal mining. Indeed, there are video evidence of a presidential staffer receiving money. There's such an evidence of a presidential staffer receiving money from illegal miners, promising to pave the way for them to continue their transactions. In the past, the mayor of Accra, Kumasi, Sampine, and the likes were neck deep in mining in our forest reserves. Akonta mining and Wuntumi are classical examples. So these activities in the previous regime laid the foundation for the cause of a state of emergency, because at a point the people of this country doubted the political commitment and saw the complicity of the political class in the activities of illegal mining. So for them, the only way for us to reset was simply a declaration of state of emergency. And many of us, to be honest with you, I associated with that call, because the circumstances at the time called for it. Our media men made it a topical issue, and they had samples of polluted water on their screens to inform us of the devastation that we are subjecting our water bodies to. It was a national drive because we had lost absolute confidence in the political class at the time. So these were the circumstances. You simply could not tell whether indeed the presidency was complicit or not. But in truth, their activities suggested that they were complicit. We cannot say same now, especially so when the interventions are yielding fruits. Like I indicated in my earlier on, we have been able to retrieve about 9 forests. We have discovered communities that hitherto were not discovered under the previous regime. The presidency has shown commitment, and it will be difficult for you to point to a presidential staffer and say that the person is complicit in the activities of illegal mining. Indeed, when allegations even came against our national organizer and first vice chairman, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, through the Attorney General, directed an investigation against these people, which is ongoing. That is commitment. So the circumstances are entirely different, and that is why I don't fault UTAC. You see, UTAC scores, even after His Excellency President Mahama's explanations, that indeed there's a need for His Excellency to declare a state of emergency. It's clearly consistent. The responsibility is on us, political communicators and communicators of this government, to attempt to engage the likes of UTAC, for them to appreciate that, look, the circumstances are different. And that if we were met with similar circumstances, undoubtedly, this government wouldn't have had a difficulty declaring a state of emergency. But the circumstances today are entirely different. The fight clearly is yielding results, but maybe not as much as we wanted. But it is because we have a sustainable approach to that fight. So on one hand, we are rolling out policies intended to ensure sustainability. On the other hand, we are engaged in the prosecution of people so that it serves as a deterrent for many of our colleagues or compatriots who would want to take up that particular role of engaging in illegal mining. So it's a double-pronged approach. And this government is religiously pursuing it. And I can assure you that if at any point in time we reach a stage where it is important for us to declare a state of emergency, His Excellency President Mahama will not shy away from that responsibility. But until we get to that stage, my brother, even the #1 journalist in the field, he has had cause to commend this government, Erastus, to commend this government as far as the strategy we are deploying is concerned.
His most recent, and I'll look for it, his most recent comment on Facebook actually now says that the former government did way better. I'll look for it and I'll share with you.
But
Dr. Butter. Yes. So the president says that...
But even before you go there, did the former government retrieve 9 forests? Did they discover communities that were clearly illegal mining enclaves?
My assumption was that I was doing the question.
Okay, I'll...
Dr. Water.
Yes.
So the president says that state of emergency would be the last resort. It's not to say that it's not necessary, but it will be the last resort. A lot of things are being done. It's just 9 months or 8 months into government. You're already asking at the beginning of my governance or my administration to call for a state of emergency. And it's too early. Let me try the other approaches I have on paper. All the things I've rolled out. 9 months is too early to say that it should bear fruit. Why is the NPP up in arms?
Okay, so good morning, and I am glad to share my thoughts on this particular subject. For me, when it comes to the topical issue of Galamsey, I think that it's not just illegal mining. We must be minded that this is a domain that borders on the environmental and ecological security of our state. Now, the easiest way, even beyond war, for a nation to collapse is when you have issues of food insecurity and health insecurity, especially where the particular sectors that controls the supply of food and service the supply chains thereof have got linkages or are actually the same sectors that feed into your public health parameters. And the vulnerability thereof is further exacerbated when you actually even have those same sectors being the mainstay of the economy in terms of the provision of jobs. Now, if we want then to discuss and understand the issue of illegal mining and become more nationalistic about creating sustainability and moving away from the kind of political hypocrisy we are recording on the matter, then we've got to contextualize it within these parameters I have just defined. My brother, a cursory account of the situation tells us that as a nation, we are already suffering the vivid manifestations of the negativities and the perils of the menace. There's no argument about it. It didn't start today. It didn't start 5 years ago. It didn't start a decade ago. It's been an age-old thing. Probably it's gaining more media attention now and has become the center of, politicking, which for me is quite unfortunate. So if you have this menace undermining jobs, undermining health, undermining economic progress, and undermining the vegetative integrity, where food supplies are hampered because, we have a lot of farmlands being taken, you have underproduction of foods, and even more sad, where food is produced, you have hard metals traced in our foods. Mercury, copper, lead. These are serious hard metals if you averagely run a laboratory test of any of our food commodities, you find them there. First of all, making these commodities unfit for trade in the international and export market, again leading to revenue losses and the inability to create market for our farmers. Now, health-wise, you have these same circumstances because of the hard metals now causing a surge actually in hole in heart conditions for children. It creates kidney issues for young adults. Now you see kids, 16, 17 years, actually having problems with high blood pressure, liver issues. And we are beginning to think that these things are actual. In fact, and sometimes pastors, with the greatest respect, will tell you these things are spiritual. But some of them are actually not spiritual. A lot of them emanate from these health insecurities arising from the nature of our mining activities. So it's not just about illegal mining. It's also about unregulated and irresponsible mining. So then, if these discussions I have just elucidated are actually real, tangible security imperatives that are undermining progress, then it calls to question what the nature of the situation in terms of insecurity outlook, in terms of safety for the nation, and as to whether or not an interaction between these two variables do not have the propensity to actually undermine the stability of our democracy. And indeed, they do. If they do, then the calls for a state of emergency cannot be a last resort. In fact, if we are agreeing it is a last resort, then the moment is now for that last resort to tackle the insecurity and the perils of safety the situation is presenting. My brother is a lawyer, and he understands and appreciates better that even our own constitution, Article 31(9), is very specific on the circumstances under which a state of emergency may be exercised as an option. And key among them is where life, okay, where there's an existential threat, where there is a danger to life. That is number one of any community. And in this case, community is conceptualized to also mean national community, actually. Number two, where public safety, okay, is threatened, where security can be undermined. These are the circumstances beyond just the traditional state-centric issues of war and defense situations. There is no war greater than what we are going through now. And so it cannot be a last resort. Under the circumstances, the only resort we have is a state of emergency and to tackle the matter with the appropriate kinetic force that is required, because the operationalization, the modus operandi of these kind of things happens in such a way that they are syndicates, serious cartels. My brother HAMZA in his submission actually pointed to how political players, especially in the past administration, were caught to have had hand in this. It is early days yet. If the right thing is not done, there is high propensity that we will have same political players also in this regime going into the same situation. So I appreciate this particular issue from the perspective of its obvious security implications. Now, it should therefore not have anything to do with whether the president, when he was in opposition, directly declared a state, suggested a state of emergency or not. At least, UTAC, a professional body to which I am a member, was actually very much in the lead in the calls for a state of emergency. UTAC is an academic body. We are professionals when it comes to the intellectual co-creation of knowledge. So we just don't speak. We speak on the basis of verifiable empirical evidences. Now, a government needs nothing more than resorting to scholarship, data for swift action. That is why we engage consultants. So if professional bodies to which the NDC, whilst in opposition, had respect to and actually associated with our calls for a state of emergency, granted that the president didn't, even though I have my doubts about it, and I'm going to search the evidence to that effect, because I think he did, actually. But granted that they only associated themselves with it, it means that they saw reason, they saw wisdom in the call, and they saw agency. So what is stopping you today? What are the other procedures you say you are taking that you didn't deem fit that the past administration were also probably doing so. I mean, this is not to draw equalization. I'm saying that if one government was voted out and you have come in, the confidence with which you've been brought in is predicated on the disappointment of the previous administration. You cannot ply the same route. So the posture being taken by the president, and I was studying him beyond the words during his address of the nation. I was studying his emotional balance on the matter and his psychological disposition of seeing. You see, and I think that there is no major shift from President Mahama's posture towards Galamsey now to what it was in his previous regime as president, where we actually saw very little done. So it must be fixed, and it's got to be fixed now and with agency, because it also has human rights abuses to our health and our economic, circumstances. So I see government as playing the ostrich. If you must talk about justification for state of emergency, it must be predicated on the provisions of Article 31(9) and the realities on the ground satisfy same. And if academia and other professional bodies, civil society organizations, as my brother HAMZA mentioned, are the ones who once called for it and are still calling for it, on what basis is the president shifting goalpost? So it means that it can just be concluded that there is some form of playing of the ostrich on the matter. And I think that is not a fair beginning for us. Are you getting it? You talk about the withdrawal of the IGP's, task force, they give an excuse. Yet you saw the need to introduce a water guard that do not have that kinetic power. I mean, the force required to tackle these hoodlums in our forest. As we talk, I made a statement on GH1 and I'll make it again because the Forestry Commission have still not issued any statement to the contrary of the claims by Awake News and my GH Online accusation that 4 forest entry permits were issued between March and June this year. Is it true? If it is not, they should let us know. But if they are not letting us know, then you can't blame anybody for holding same constant. The organizations mentioned, and if I may have just 30 seconds for this. Number 1, I think GBF Associates Limited. Number 2, FJ Minerals. Number 3, Ambi Ghana Limited. And Gateway Explorations. Is it true that indeed and in fact they actually had forest entry permits? If yes, it actually quadruples the hypocrisy of the government on the matter. Because you know what? Among others, the most prominent reason for which we actually issue these forest entry permits is to give them leverage to have access to protected forests for 3 fundamental purposes. 1, prospecting. 2, exploration. 3, recognizance. All of these feeds into the architecture of the destruction of our ecology. And so government's position, much as baby steps are taken and it's just 9 months in power, I think that I do not see seriousness and political will to give equal and proportional force by the state to these hoodlums, these syndicates, these cartels who are actually killing a nation and causing families to spend hugely at the hospitals and actually collapsing our economies. That should be my position.
Before I come to you, there's been mention of the Article 31(9). So for the benefit of viewers, I would want to read the article so we'll put it in perspective. The Article 31(1) says that the president may, acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State, by proclamation published in the Gazette, declare that a state of emergency exists in Ghana or in any part of Ghana for the purpose of provisions of this Constitution. Now, subsection 9 says that the circumstances under which a state of emergency may be declared under this article include a natural disaster and any situation in which any action is taken or is immediately threatened to be taken by any person or body of persons which, A, is calculated or likely to deprive the community of the essentials of life, or B, renders necessary the taking of measures which are required for securing the public safety, the defense of Ghana, and the maintenance of public order, and of supplies and services essential to the life of the community. So if you hear Dr. Boka talk about Article 31 and then subsection 9, this is exactly what he is referring to. Now, Bernard, this whole talk of state of emergency, I mean, I've just read the Constitution. Are we there yet? Because I remember the previous government's hesitation in doing this was that they do not think that what was happening was enough grounds to declare a state of emergency. And I hear the current president also saying the same thing, that we are not there yet. We've not gotten to that level yet. Why is it a big deal?
Good morning to you, my colleagues on the panel, your many viewers. The President of the Republic of Ghana, on volition, decided to engage with the media, as there is no compulsion whatsoever for him to do so. What was the reason for which the President decided that let me get to the citizens of this nation through the media? And I think that from the outset, it needs to be commended that our President chose that he will be available to the media. However, the President did not tell us how regular this encounter is going to be so that we can continue to hear from him. Every movement of the President is a public movement, except when he goes into his bedroom. Every movement of the President is of public interest. And therefore, we see our President, he makes statements in different forms. But the President has not subjected himself to questioning. And on this occasion, he chose that I'll be available for questioning by a cross-section of the media. Three things that I want to interrogate. One, that in deciding to avail himself to the media, which segment of the media was he engaging? Because the media in Ghana is so broad. Regional representation of the media from the Ghana Journalists Association to sector-specific media or journalists. Because I think that media is beginning to specialize. Some are specialized in agricultural issues, some on environmental issues, some on energy issues, some on sports. And so these segments ought to be brought on board so they could question the President. Two, if I say I'm going to subject myself to questions, then there's no point in making an almost half-an-hour statement. The media should have questions to answer. So all that you say is that, look, I want to be interrogated by you on any subject. But the President took us through a lengthy period.
Think about 21 minutes.
Well, it's almost 30 minutes on my count, at least 28 minutes on my count. And I thought that that was too lengthy. It shouldn't take the President more than 3 minutes to welcome the media and to ask them to ask him questions from Sankana to Pasempe. And he should be in a position to respond. If the President is not in a position to respond to anything, two things will come up. Either his appointees have not briefed him, or the national security that briefs him daily on situations in our country have not alerted him to that. And there is no shame in admitting that on this particular subject or topic, I'm yet to get the appropriate briefing so that I can respond. And so, yes, I welcome wholeheartedly the idea that the President will open up to the media. I want to see how frequent this can be so that the media can start preparing. But the media cannot be concentrated in Accra. Despite that, most media houses have affiliates in the regions. There are region-specific issues that are not captured in a media encounter in Accra. And so if the president is able to move that in many of his activities, if he gets to a region and possibly to pass the night there, he can have a media encounter, but not with a lengthy opening statement as I witnessed. Now, in part of the thing has to do with the issue of what I call artisanal mining, that majority of us has Christian illegal or Galamsey, for so to speak. I am totally different when it comes to the concept of illegal mining. I come from a district that Dr. Bota Banoemule comes from. There is mining taking place, particularly in his backyard. Direct. In fact, the market that we used to enjoy is being taken over. A lot of activities, and it's not just, sorry. You see, we're talking about mining as if it is the only thing that is devastating the environment. What we call rosewood, what's the local name? It has escaped. Around the backyard there, we cleared all the rosewoods. And trees also act as check for erosion and many other things, and wind. We cleared all those things. There was no state of emergency declared. And so if we want to tackle holistically the issues confronting our environment, then artisanal mining is just a small part of it. But why do we think that artisanal mining, Christian Galamsey, or illegal mining has been on the surge? It is because of government's failure to attend to the many challenges that confront the people of our nation. Galamsey is a threat to our living. Why is poverty not a threat to our living? Why is unemployment not a threat to our living? And as I say, Banoemule will take this, that at the backyard of the Sarpong area, there are people with master's degrees who cannot find any job. But they have tried, they have searched, they cannot get one. And they have to survive. In fact, most of them went into their various fields of study, borrowing in the hope that they will get a job afterwards. Now they are compounded with loans that they cannot pay. They have a life to live, take care of the aged that took care of them in school. And they cannot find one. And they are told that when we go into the bushes, we'll be able to extract something and make a life out of it. You say they should not engage in it. You have not provided any opportunity for them. In fact, what we see daily, annually, is that government upon government, since the overthrow of Nkrumah, come to tell us in many forms, either they are downsizing, they are retrenching, they are cutting the size of government, and thereby reducing the employment opportunities for our people. You are training people in many fields, and you are not creating avenues for them to be employed. When they go into the deep forest, look, which one of us here will say that the people feel comfortable in the way they go and muddy themselves? Which one will think that it is out of joy, excitement, to go and dirty themselves in the way they dirty themselves?
So there are fundamental tackling issues that we have failed. So let's not come and sit here and talk about the surface. Declaring a state of emergency, where? Let's go and declare it in Wichima. By the time you succeed in controlling Wichima, the people are in Sankana, they will find a way. If they don't find it in Sankana, they will be in Takpo. So you go and close this place, they will go to another side because people must survive. And I have insisted that government's justicing its rights and powers to create employment and to take ownership of the extractive sector is responsible for many of our young people running into the bushes to find a living. See, Ashanti goldfields used to exist. And for those of us sitting here, I am not sure there is any community, north-south, that you did not find your people in the Obuasi enclave. In fact, you used to hear about Obuasi with such elegance because your relative or someone is working there and they are working at AGC. What did we do to AGC? We started peeling off, sharing AGC, like granules in Tanasieda. You give some, you give some. Today, we don't own the mining company. The people who own the mining company are not Ghanaians. They are British. In fact, the only benefit we got was for 9 months, where they appointed Sam Jonah as co-president. Because he was then the CEO, chief executive of Ashanti Goldfields. When we sold it to Anglo Gold, they appointed him as co-president for 9 months and went and knighted him. So he's called Sir. That's the benefit that we got. Every other thing has been yanked off. The many people that were employed in AGC under the state and were earning income, had accommodation, had health and other packages and insurance. Where are they? Where are they? They are left without jobs. Their families have no option. And those who have an iota of what it takes to do mining have decided that, okay, let's cut parcels of land and engage in it. That is the problem. Why is the state not interested in owning the sector? Why is it that, and why is it that anything that can generate revenue for us as a nation, we are told that it is not the business of government to own or to control it. But anything that generates expenditure, we are encouraged to keep it. How do you fund that expenditure if you do not have streams of revenue? So the extractive sector is completely without any state control. We expect the state to vomit money or to go and always borrow to come and attend to expenditure, but will not be able to generate income. So anything extractive, we sell off. So it's like we are sitting here, you have your clothing, and you start taking one by one, taking them off. You become naked, and your presence will become a nuisance. That is what we have done. So anyone calling for a state of emergency is justified on the periphery. But in terms of what we can do as a people, is that let's start taking control of what belongs to that. Listen, I say this without any hold-ups. Newmont alone is said to be. It takes only a little part of our minerals. We are told that the wealth of Newmont is about 128 times richer than Ghana. Newmont. We are not talking about other giants. And they are just taking a fraction of the gold and other minerals. They are 128 times richer than Ghana. How much rich or wealth does Anglo Gold Ashanti have? So how come that we give these things to them and they become richer, and the state will come and tell us that we do not have the capacity? Which capacity are we talking about here? And who told you that capacity cannot be procured? When Kwame Nkrumah was doing his development plan,
so you wrap up on that one, will you?
He brought people. There were Indians, there were Americans that he brought because he needed to create an independent nation. So wherever we can find that capacity to ensure that, let's take control. Look, where's our diamond? We don't have diamonds. We don't have bauxite that we control. But if you go through the Bibiani Sefiria zone, I'm sure all of us travel, and you see the trucks that are carrying stones for bauxite, and they move from those areas, they come to the Takra depot, they are shipped, because we cannot process that bauxite here. And anytime they are shipped, we are told that they did not find bauxite, yet every day stones are being shipped. Every day stones are being shipped. And we are becoming poorer. Some people are taking it with heavy trucks, destroying our roads. They are not constructing the roads for us. And yet, they return with nothing. And we think that you declare a state of emergency and that becomes a panacea to the destroying of our forests, our water, and what have you. I can assure you, you can declare any state of emergency. And until and unless we are able to take control of that sector by the state and for the benefit of our people, it's a waste of our little resources, because as you are spending more resources to send your security to go and kill our own, they will not stop. They will keep moving from one end to the other. And so you declare a state of emergency, maybe in Bojuaso. By the time you finish, you have to go and control another sector. This is what we have to deal with.
The president made a very emphatic statement which got me thinking. He indicated that within the period or after the introduction of the gold board, we've been able to sell about 6 billion worth of gold. And out of that 6 billion, 4 billion would have been money that would have gone into private pockets. What this means is that now that they are asking all of them to sell this gold to the gold board, there is some 4 million that is coming from, for want of a better term, the Galamsey space, which is now being routed through the gold board and has increased our revenue by 67%. If our revenue has been increased by 67% from what, from all intents and purposes, seems to be Galamsey, because the president said, if it is illegal or illegal, as long as it's our land that it is destroying, let's take the money first. Do we have the guts to fight Galamsey, if this is how much the government is even making out of it?
Thank you very much, my brother, and good morning once again to yourself, my senior colleagues and my brothers, and to your viewers. It's an interesting perspective where you're coming from, and it's very dicey. First of all, let us understand that the president made the statement in context. And so when we are dealing with the statement by the president, we deal with it as such. Now, the president, in my view, listening to him, was not making the statement to endorse the activities of illegal mining or galamseyers, or to say that indeed if we are making money out of Galamsey, then it is good as a government, so we should allow it. That is not what the president meant. What, in my understanding and the context in which that statement was made, if we had not established gold board, all of those gold that had been mined illegally, that were in the possession of Galamseyers, would have gone into private pockets, because the gold is already in existence. You cannot use a day to mine that kind of gold that the president is talking about. What I see is that Galamseyers are now in the rush to sell the gold off, because there is a window that has been opened. The window is that, listen, if you have it, it's just like the people with the small arms. It's illegal, they are holding it. But there are times they give them a window and say, bring it. At that point, there is no law that is holding you. So once you take it and you give to them, even in some jurisdictions, they even buy those small arms from you. You understand me? Okay, so the people have the illegal gold with them already. So come, let's buy it. Whilst we are buying it, then we are closing the means by which you get the gold you are having. I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from. So basically, that is what the president was trying to say, that listen, the gold is with them already. Whether legal or illegal, they are having it. We need to make something out of it. So let's buy it from them. Because if you look at the constructive nature of the gold board, which of course I endorsed it, we had stated from Movement for Change and prior to the elections that we would have to have a political will and commitment if indeed we would want to stop the Galamsey. If we would want to stop it, we would have to have an absolute control as a government, you understand, control of the mining industry. How do you control the mining industry? You see, when you leave it to the open market, what happens is that they do what they want, they sell it how they want it, when they want to sell it. But when government has put in the regulatory measures, the environment, to be able to get hold of that industry, it is properly regulated and it is well observed. So now what the gold board is implementing is that, as the president has stated, if you would want to come and sell gold to a licensed gold board vendor or whoever, if it's a gold board directly, you would have to even go to the extent of providing to the buyer, which is gold board, the origin of the gold. You understand me? The concession on which you got that gold, the company that mined that gold. You need to provide all of those documentation that has to do with the tracking and the tracing, so that we would be able to identify whether or not the company that is selling to gold board uses the right technology, has the right documentation to mine or not to mine. Because if you look at the small-scale mining and the illegal mining, it is a thin line that is in between them, technically. Okay, so you would have a concession. The small-scale mining, their certifications have a measurement, a dimension. And so somebody has about 1 acre, they have their own terms they use, but for us to just go on, they have 1 acre of a concession, all right? And you want to do small-scale mining. Small-scale mining has a limitation. So maybe you can do the small-scale mining, or the certification goes onto 1 plot. Because 1 acre is about 4 plots. Those of you who have lands. Chief, on outdoor, it's 4 plots, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So 1 plot is for small-scale mining. They give you that certification or the license for that 1 plot that you have. Now, what happens is that the small-scale miners are able to use some few days and weeks to finish their entire concession mining on that particular, but yet they have the documentation, all right? And so because the concession is theirs or the land is theirs, what happens is that in as much as the Minerals Commission has given you the license to operate on that small part of the land, they use that same documentations to extend onto the other side of the concession, which makes it illegal. So there is a thin line, and that is why most people are saying that there is a thin line, and we from the Movement of Change has even indicated that, listen, for us to be able to stop this Galamsey, it means that we would have to put a halt on all small-scale mining activities for at least a year, so that it gives us an opportunity to be able to audit the licensing regime and the certifications that has been issued probably in the last 10 to 15 years, so that we are able to tell which company or which small-scale miner or which person is overstretching, overusing their certifications and documentations, extending it into or making it illegal, and the technology and the processes that they use, because there are some areas that you cannot go into. And so we need to create that very much distinction. But of course, I mean, the illegal mining activities has affected the entire country in a lot of ways. Our economy, our health, our education, all right? The settlement that we have, our tourism has all been affected. I have stated on other platforms that it is not only an ecocide, which means the destruction of the land, the destructions of our ecosystem. It is not only that. I see it beyond going into a genocide. Why? Because people are dying. But then, has there been a commitment? Has there been...
We can understand an assembly member was killed during a clash between the military and Asanko boat. Yeah.
I would come to that, because I don't know...
It's not the first time.
I don't know who mentioned...
About 14 people were killed at the same Asanko site.
I don't know who mentioned IGP task force and versus the water guard. I would have to deal with that distinction. So you see, the issue about Galamsey goes into a genocide where people are dying. You give birth to babies and they don't have one eye. You give birth to babies. I'm told that among all the deformities, we should pray that men do not begin to get one ball. You understand? So the issue about Galamsey goes beyond just what we can see.
You mean one basketball or volleyball?
When did you have to bring us back?
If the one ball is there, is that men you can function it, okay. You should not get one ball. I just made this thing. Or one KK ball.
Basketball. So you see,
one essential ball.
We should, when we are dealing with this matter, it does not just affect one home, and it does not just affect that community where the Galamsey is taking effect. So I guess, I know most Ghanaians are very much surprised when we say the northern sector, there is Galamsey. People get surprised. But the northern sector, the Galamsey that was happening in those areas was even more than what was happening in the eastern regions and other places. But just that because people do not think or people do not know that there is gold up north, our minds don't go there. I remember when this financial issue came up, DKM. That was when some people realized that there were actually gold mines in the north. So this is a very serious matter. Fortunately, it became a political topic. Both the NDC and the NPP. They started the debates. What was missing was the approach the systematic approach to dealing with it, but rather they saw the political noise. So they started throwing balls. When President Mahama was in, there was Galamsey the first term, he didn't do anything. Anadu has come, he also put his presidency on the line. You know, it became a give and take. But my brother, to deal with the Galamsey issue would need a scientific approach. It's a systematic approach. It's a step to the other. It is not an event. I think President Mahama made that same statement during the media engagement. Fighting Galamsey is not an event. It doesn't just happen. It's a systematic approach. Personally, I have stated on other platforms that Amakofeboa has done well when it comes to the fight for Galamsey. I'm drawing in, I'll start from the issue of the IGP versus the water guard.
So you need to do that in 2 minutes for me.
Hey, sir.
Yes.
Because
there are some few things I need to quickly respond to.
Yeah,
see,
they are there,
now, the water guard, they have a responsibility. They are more like a community watchdog. The IGP's task force went in there to fight Galamsey. Did they have the capacity? Did they even understand the documentations of mining? So what Amakofeboa did was to consolidate all the task forces, because at the point we saw the minerals something fund led by the National Women's Organizer, Hannah Bissell. Well, it's minerals what?
Income investment
Fund. The MIF, right?
Yes. Also go out there to fight Galamsey, because she felt that, listen, it is my money, I mean my money as in the organizational money that are supposed to use for the development of those communities. And for us to waste those monies, let's go out there and fight. So Amakofeboa decided to consolidate. And that was what brought about the NAMOS, the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations, all of that. An excellent move. Because we had almost all the CEOs, the CSOs were saying that, listen, let's consolidate it. Because everybody seems to be wanting to fight it. So the people did not even know which ones were the good ones and the bad ones. What is making the youth out there go into Galamsey? Unemployment. Just not unemployment. They need employment that would fetch them enough money to survive. So, yes, if you look across the table, MPP will tell you that they were going to create jobs, and DC made it, I mean, PNC, we all made the statement. As we speak, of course, they launched I've forgotten the name of the one that made us lose my brothers. The alternative livelihood. We need to push that particular agenda, to call in a lot of stakeholders and investors to see the reason to up that particular policy, so that the youth in those areas would find that as an attractive alternative. If you look at these videos that make rounds in the social media, they tell you that they make 1,000 Ghana cedis a day, 500 Ghana cedis a day. So, obi awo hu sika pay. When you are giving the person a job, if not even up to that dimension, but something closer. And these are all steps that has been taken by the Lands and Natural Resources Business, of course, backed by the president. It was a government approach. My brother, you see, we need to be able to applaud the steps that have been taken. But we keep advising. One key and strategic approach is for us to put a halt onto all illegal or all small-scale mining activities. It will give us that opportunity to sanitize the industry. It will give us that time for us to be able to have a scientific approach to restoring our water bodies properly. It would give us that time to be able to reclaim almost all of these lands. Because, yes, we've gone back, security has taken over these lands and these forest reserves. What are we doing to them? I know that there are steps to reclaim them. But if we do not have that picture that all of us would see, it would look as if nobody is doing nothing about it. And just to conclude, because I know they want to rebut a lot of the things, but just to conclude, I would want to state that the president's media engagement, in as much as was a very beautiful thing, I would want to agree with Bernard and the Prof.
SIKANKU.
Yes, SIKANKU, that it should not just be done in Accra. I personally would want us to have a blend of media engagement in the People's Assembly. Yes, I mean, it was an excellent move with the approach Felix took, because I don't know if I'm the only one that saw it, but I realized that there were other media houses across the country that phoned in. I don't know if it was by Zoom
pay attention.
or
They were
from Savannah and from, I think, some other regions that they give opportunity. Yes, they ask their
They were
questions.
selected across the regions.
But I mean, as be as it may, if the president has had the opportunity to go to some of them, they can even divide the country probably into 4 or 5, where he would have not just the media engagement, but the People's Assembly. Because you see, sometimes, yes, the invitations will be sent to the media houses, because what I saw in the House went beyond the presidential call. It went beyond the presidential press call.
Yeah, senior journalists.
We had senior journalists as part of it, but I mean, the media, the practitioners and the journalists, they also have their own agenda. They also have their own mind. They also, if I'm a journalist and I come from Dominasi and I go there, I'm from Dominasi Bekwai, the first thing I would want to ask about the president will be on health. Mr. President, the SDA hospital in Dominasi, what are you doing about it? You understand me? But when you have opened it up to the ordinary citizen, because it is about them, they drive the narrative to bring the community issues to the fore of the president. It's very key. They can have a review on that, and that would help. But just my last statement. Bernard made a statement as though the president was doing us a favor by engaging the press. No, I stand to differ, because the president is accountable to the people of Ghana.
I don't think that's what he was saying.
Okay. I would never do that. I said there was no compulsion.
You mean that he was not mandated by law?
All right. But he chose to do it.
But he chose to do it.
Okay.
In doing so, there were many things that needed to be asked. How frequent can we have such?
Absolutely. Because no, beyond the State of the Nation's address, I believe that the president owes us that level of accountability to be able to tell, because the issues cannot all be addressed in a yearly presidential
So, HAMZA,
statement.
I know you would want to rebut a few things, but in doing that, I would want you to respond to 1 or 2 key issues for me before I take a break and come back to Doctor here. So 2 issues I need you to indicate for me. There was talk about repealing the LI that allowed entry into the forest mining with 2/3 majority. What is keeping us from doing that? 2, in the president's address, also the president mentioned that some small-scale miners are being taken to Australia to be trained on how to mine without polluting waters. Is that to suggest that the small-scale miners are the ones polluting the water? So in your rebuttal, please try and respond to these 2 for me.
Small-scale miners cannot carry excavators and shampoo.
Yes. So, but if the people are already efficient, then what's the point in going
no,
to train them
not,
again?
They are not. It is also erroneous to create the impression that they are already efficient, because when it comes to reclamation, none of them are committed to the principles of reclamation, especially after mining. They do not know how to reclaim the lands after mining as small-scale miners. It is not for nothing that His Excellency President Mahama, as part of that comprehensive effort, decided to launch the HAMZA, intended to make even district assemblies and district chief executives major stakeholders when it comes to the issues of accountability and ensuring reclamation of mined lands. Because these people, the small-scale miners, will be put into groups of cooperatives. Then that way, our district assemblies and local government agencies are able to monitor their activities. Fines are imposed. After they are mining, then the district assemblies or local government setup, they take the initiative to reclaim the lands. And it can be in the form of contracts, where even Dr. Bota here can be awarded a contract to reclaim a section of the land.
I must be awarded. My backyard needs reclamation. I must be awarded.
So that is the whole idea, or that was the whole idea behind the HAMZA. And I think that the training exercise is in line with that particular initiative, because as part of that mining exercise, it is important for them to know how to mine responsibly. Because this is how it starts, especially when it comes to the devastation of our environment. It starts as small-scale artisanal mining, and if care is not taken, the numbers begin to grow. Then you see the faceless financiers taking advantage of the system and begin to pump in resources and machinery to aid the process. And it is important for those who are engaged in this small-scale mining and artisanal mining. It's not illegal, provided they get the needed licensing and documentation. It is important we train them to be ready and be aware that as far as their work is concerned, it can be taken advantage by many other people who possibly would move them towards the unfortunate activity of illegal mining. You also asked about the LI 2462. I think that it has been, His Excellency President Mahama was clear that indeed plans are far advanced to repeal it.
What does it really mean? Plans are far advanced?
Because the whole initiative has to be taken by Parliament. You know that as a republic, we are treading cautiously, especially when it comes to the separation of powers. And so the president cannot be seen directing to Parliament as to how to proceed. What we know is that the minister responsible for environment, science and technology, unfortunately until his unfortunate demise, the Honorable Alhaji Murtala Mohammed, was clearly in touch with Parliament and the Attorney General. They had looked at the bill and processes of its repeal, and the discussions were ongoing, including the Parliamentary Select Committee. It is not just a one-day event. Parliament has rules. Even government, before you introduce a bill before the floor of Parliament, there are certain processes you need to go through. And in some instances, the law dictates a 21-hour day, room for you to hold discussions, even after holding discussions. So the processes are quite cumbersome. It is not as we think. So let us allow the processes to work. If at the end of the day it is not repealed, I'll be around the same table with you, and we would direct the questions at His Excellency the President and the entire government as to why that particular LI has not been repealed. But I can assure you, from where I'm seated, that discussions are ongoing and it will be repealed before the end of the year. I am pretty much convinced, barring any unfortunate circumstances that are likely to occur, it will be repealed before the end of the year. But you see, KOJO, I listen to my brother's attempt to more or less pursue political equalization under the guise of giving us a lecture on the effects of illegal mining.
But I thought it was a lecture
and questioning the motive and honesty of this president and government, subtly. You see, let the point be made that when it comes to the devastating effects of illegal mining, these are discussions we have had in the last 8 years under their stewardship and the leadership of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. So we do not need any lecture whatsoever about the economic implications, the health implications. That has been settled. We all know as a republic. And so that is not on the issue today. What is before us is how collectively we can fight this canker intended to protect our environment and the Ghanaian people. And we must not lose sight of that focus. And this government has tried strenuously to be very transparent and open as far as that fight is concerned. Indeed, we have provided protection, enviable protection, for media men who are willing to understand and to be part of the process, to understand the steps taken by this government. It is at the back of that initiative that His Excellency President Mahama has decided to unveil himself for questions to be asked as far as his stewardship is concerned. He knew that there was no way such an event could have been held without Ghanaian journalists asking about our fights when it comes to illegal mining. But it is because we are convinced that our fights the fight is beginning to at least demonstrate some resource. That is why we are reluctant to go long haul with a declaration of state of emergency. Because you see, people are forgetting that we did not only inherit a troubling and disinterested fight against illegal mining as far as the Prez regime is concerned. We also inherited a terrible economic situation. And at this critical moment, that we are doing everything within our power to reclaim our economy, it will be disastrous for us to also, in the midst of that, send wrong signals, especially when our fight against illegal mining is beginning to bear fruits, that indeed Ghana has declared a state of emergency. You simply cannot begin to imagine the economic repercussions of such a declaration on the economic fortunes of this country at a time that we are in the woods and doing everything within our power to reclaim. So you can make references to Article 33 of the 1992 Constitution as much as you want. 31. But the reality is that when it comes to the declaration of the state of emergency, it is His Excellency the President who would have discussions with his national security or security installations, and if it is ideal, in line with economic objectives of the country, to declare, especially if we are convinced that our initiatives are not beginning to resolve the issues as we intended, then be rest assured that His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama will take that initiative and declare a state of emergency. And like I have explained in my earlier submission, KOJO, you see, unlike the previous regime and the party that he represents, we will not take for granted the legitimate demands of the Ghanaian people, and we will not insult them for expressing their views. It is the reason why that even after His Excellency President Mahama's engagements, we have remained very careful in terms of our responses to those who still feel strongly that there is the need for us to declare a state of emergency. In the past, it was not like that. By now, that particular government would have unleashed their attack dogs to be against these people. Remember what they did to the likes of Professor Jampo and Co. and UTAC. But we understand that this is a national call, and anybody who at this material moment is calling for a declaration of state of emergency is not doing so based on political considerations or partisanship. We believe that the passion is genuine and legitimate. But we also know that as a government, the steps we have deployed so far are beginning to show some measure of success. That gives us confidence that indeed, if we continue on that path, we would be able to sustainably deal with the menace of illegal mining. And that is a marked departure from what we experienced in the past. And I can assure him, it is never going to a stage where functionaries at the Jubilee House will themselves be neck deep when it comes to activities of illegal mining. We won't get there. And so I hate to burst your bubble in terms of your an intimation that indeed we are likely to get there. We are not going to get there because this president has demonstrated commitment as far as that fight is concerned, and has demonstrated to his appointees that he would not be willing to shield anybody found on the wrong side of the law, especially when it comes to this fight against illegal mining. And you see, KOJO, finally, on that same issue,
there's a final.
Yeah, you don't want
there's still a final.
This one is the final.
Let's take a quick break. So final.
In that commentary, there's the need for us, sincerely, to attempt to distinguish the legitimate demands of the Ghanaian people and the unhealthy partisanship and obsession of the opposition, especially New Patriotic Party, to force an equalization where there's none. Why am I saying this? Look, on one hand, we have people who are concerned about the menace, who are calling on this government to strengthen efforts as far as the fight is concerned. On the other hand, and they are the noise makers, they make the noise, the most noise as far as this fight is concerned.
In other hand, people.
Yes, that is the NPP. For them, the motivation is not about any sustainability as far as our forest reserves and lands are concerned. The motivation has always been driven by equalization, and so they have polluted the landscape with noise and deception. That creates an impression as though the situation is murkier than we inherited. And that is why I told you that the likes of Dr. Bota, he is an academic. I expected him to be demonstrating or arguing based on data that indeed, since this government came into office, the fight against illegal mining has become worse. I have demonstrated to you around this table the number of forest reserves that were under siege when the NPP was in power, and how many we have been able to retrieve. I have indicated to you communities that were thriving in illegal mining activities that we have been able to identify and demolish. And if you go to Irasu's war today, there's documentary and video evidence of the work of Blue Water Guards in destroying such communities. Go to his Facebook page. In the past, we used not to have these developments. And so we must begin to create that distinction between the legitimate demands of the Ghanaian people and the unfortunate partisan-laced noise and presentations by the NPP. It is very important. And when they made reference to the withdrawal of the Ghana Police Service, like my brother aptly explained, at a point the fight was not coordinated because every government agency wanted to be part of the drive to fight illegal mining because they knew that His Excellency President Mahama was dedicated and committed to that fight. So they wanted not just to be seen as warming their chairs in their various offices. They wanted to demonstrate to the president that, look, I take your directive seriously. And there was the need for us to regulate that particular initiative. That is why NEMOS was formed, to handle it. And Ghana Police Service, they are not trained when it comes to determining who has a legal license or not. How to read those licenses. It is a special area. And those that have been tasked to handle it are trained in that regard. That is the national security apparatus. Because they do so, they move with officials from the Minerals Commission. So someone can actually present to you a license mining a particular specification, location, when in actual sense it's not supposed to be there, but you may not be able to know. And we have all seen the videos of the police. When they go there, they engage with the community. The engagement with the communities is missing. People are mining right away. Move out. But the first thing you do is to ascertain the veracity or otherwise of any license that they are holding. Because it could be a legal mine. And if they are not engaged in reclamation, then the Minerals Commission officials take advantage of that particular engagement to demand reclamation after the mining. And so that we'll be able to monitor. And it is important for that point to be made. As for the legitimate cause of the Ghanaian people, KOJO, we can have discussions, and I assure them that I will do everything within our power to explain to them. But when it comes to the MP, but you know the motive of the New Patriotic Party and what they represent as far as this fight is concerned. And they should not be talking because their record is still there.
Okay, Dr. Muta, I'll give you a chance to speak right after the break. Viewers will be taking a quick break. After the break, we'll continue with some other aspects of the president's media encounter. The midnight moving excavators, we would discuss them, and whether the president has become a supreme leader or not. We will discuss these ones. As we mentioned earlier, the Bank of Africa understands that we all need some financial quick fix every now and then, whether it is school fees, replacing the old refrigerator, or fixing the car engine to get back on the road. The quick fix loan package was made with you in mind. Seize the opportunity and let your tough times make way for that soft life that you've been dreaming about. Visit any Bank of Africa branch near you today and enjoy unbeatable low interest rates, flexible terms, and straightforward application process. Call Bank of Africa on 0302 429333 or 0302 249690, or chat with Fafa at www.boaghana.com for more information. Remember, terms and conditions apply. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. We'll be right back after the break. HAMZA would take leave of us, so after the break, he would not be in studio. We'll be right back.
Kwame and his uncle are almost here.
Wait a minute. This one too, your friend Kwame.
Wait, Kwame? As in the same Kwame again?
Yes, Mommy.
I'm the second coming. Into all this tension just to reintroduce that broke boy from Kaswa.
Why would you deceive the family like this again? Now I understand the whole delay. Troll from Kaswa, dear. Why wouldn't he be late? Or be later? Of course.
Everyone to hush, everyone to hush. You go be the luckiest. Copy from Georgia be luckiest. From not the pure cause she be luckiest. Yeah, you go be luckiest. Nobody why you're lucky. Everybody go be that luckiest.
That Kwame!
Send your God down boom. If you put it toy, so would the coming of the Son of Man be. Is that his car?
Everywhere.
Dial star 712 hash. Choose your ticket. Enter your lucky number. Follow the prompts and let destiny handle the rest.
This promotion is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform.
MedShay, natural mosquito repellent, highly recommended by Ministry of Health, CHAS and GES, lab tested by Noguchi Medical, field trialed by Atomic Energy Commission. It has no chemical or side effects and is good for all ages and skin type. MedShay is available nationwide. Contact us on 0244892413. This advert is approved by FDA.
The streets is calling. Let's dance. This September, the heartbeat of culture returns. Get ready to ignite the streets of Ho with rhythm, color, and unmissable energy. Boborbo Carnival 2025 is here. Bigger, bolder, and more electrifying than ever. On Saturday, September 27th, 2025, as part of the legendary Asogli Yam Festival, the city of Ho will come alive. With your masks on, carnival gears ready, and dancing feet set, you're invited to a street celebration like no other. From the hills to the coast, over 10 incredible Bobobo groups from across Ghana will battle in the 2025 National Bobobo Championship. Who will rise? Who will rule the rhythms? Come and witness dance, drum, and tradition in their rawest and fiercest form. This is more than a contest. It's a cultural spectacle, a national celebration of unity, heritage, and pride. Bring the whole family. Premier traditional carnival, street games, and electrifying performances. There's something for everyone, from elders to little ones. So mark your calendar. Saturday, 27 September 2025, Ho Bankoi, Volta region, Ghana. Don't just hear about it, live it. Let's dance, let's celebrate, let's make history together. Brought to you by the Bobobo Carnival, Asogli State Council, proudly supported by Lifestyle TV. Shop better.
With regards to excavators, we're enforcing the law that you must get the permits before the excavator is put on a ship. That is what the law has been, but it was not followed. And so they let the excavator land before they come and ask the Ministry of Transport for a permit. And so we've informed all the dealers that you cannot load an excavator onto a ship until you have gotten a permit. In the meantime, a lot of excavators have arrived at the port. And recently, somebody said they were being released at midnight to their owners and things. That's not true. What happens was there were so many that they had occupied a huge area of the port and congested the port. And so we found the land near Shai Hills, near the military installation. And the Field Engineers Regiment and others have been given charge to move the excavators from the port to that area so that they can free up space in the port. And they do that in the night because of traffic in the daytime. So in the night, they have the payloaders moving the excavators out of the port to the designated areas where they are supposed to be held. And before any of those excavators is released, they must be tracked, they must have a tracker on them, they must be registered by the owner of the excavator, and we must know the purpose for which the excavator has been imported. Because the construction industry also imports excavators. And so you cannot put a blanket ban on importation of excavators just because you think that every excavator is going to go into the illegal mining industry. Even the big mining companies that have licenses import excavators. And so we want to know who is importing the excavators, who it is going to. We want to be able to put a tracker on it and be able to trace that excavator wherever it is in the country.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you. Bank of Africa proudly sponsors Current Agenda. We're back in the studio. With me, we have Nanea, we have Bernard, and Dr. Bota. So, Dr. Bota, before we left, you wanted to do a few rebuttals. So maybe just 2 minutes, then we conclude on the president's media encounter and move to a different topic. So just 2 minutes.
Okay, so that's fine. So like I was telling my brother HAMZA before he left, he wasn't fair to me. First of all, I think I delivered more scientific content on how we must understand the security of this situation, how that ties into the legality of the matter on the basis of the provisions of Article 31.9, and how to move forward to deal with it as a matter that is centered on human security. And I have concluded that on those grounds, we are not interested actually in the rhetorics of the situation. It's any bit to talk about success must be anchored on real tangible outcomes. And my argument is that, look, when it comes to real tangible outcomes and the posture of seriousness required to tackle the situation for those kind of outcomes that addresses the insecurities, I see the stance of government as hypocritical as it has always been. Like my brother Bernard said, this issue have run through governments, and it's always the same narrative. Plans are underway, plans are far advanced, yet they never reach their destination. Now, I want to make a contribution to the issue of, shall I call it a clarity, actually. But you see, there is this narrow understanding of the concept of a state of emergency. It's a broad legal concept, but there are three underlying dimensions of it that we must understand to be able to make a contextual argument on the matter. Number one, which is what a lot of people understand it to be, is the state-centric security approach, which has to do with brutal force. And that one we apply it when we are dealing with issues of terrorism, war, and defense issues. There is an intermediate version of a state of emergency, which is actually what a lot of the advanced economists apply in situations like this, and that is the socio-economic emergency service. That is what we are actually asking for. It allows for a coordination of policy in a manner that is bridled to allow state, security and national security frameworks to have their operationalization find expression in policy that instigate critical issues like job, critical issues like sustainability, community engagement, and nationalistic control and ownership.
What you have done, Doc, what you have done right now, hold on for me, Doc. Doc, hold on for me. What you have done right now is you've spoken a lot of English. I don't understand that. I don't understand.
I am telling you real tangible. No. I've understood you. Let's move on.
I am a P4.
Let's move on.
Could you give me an opportunity to respond with the Saito English?
Because where
he is going to is dangerous.
Yes. So is it, Doc?
You have made your advice. So let me proceed with my time.
No,
I am still going to make the term.
No, hold on.
There is a socio-economic that is not
you need to understand. Relax for me.
I have gotten you.
I'm moderating.
I'm advised.
Allow me.
Advised.
Okay, no, I've not advised you yet. So give me a second. Do you? Okay. Doc, so this is what I want you to do. My viewers are listening. It's a Saturday morning. It's 9:30. They've not even probably eaten.
Well, but what's the linkage between time and grammar and understanding?
It is the brain. The brain just woke up.
No, there is no link. I feel ambushed now, actually. But
Doc,
like I said,
take your time and explain it. Yes, explain so we all understand what exactly.
Which one was not the Saito English? Is it my creation that the socio-economic dimension is there? These are technical concepts, and I'm saying that I cannot explain the situation without, first of all, pointing to the technical concept to deal with this whole misconception about the issue of state of emergency. And I'm saying that the socio-economic dimension deals with issues of the job creation we have all spoken about actually here. I think when it comes to this topic, there was actually consensus in our ideas. So job creation, policy issues, coordination, and the critical factor of state control of our mining services. That is what is found in the issue of a state of emergency at that level, even before we now have the mixed approach. So my point to a state of emergency didn't mean government should get up, pick arms, kill people, attack people, or use brutal force. That is not the point I'm making. I'm saying that just like successive governments, the position of government, this current administration, has been hypocritical in my candid opinion, because we are not still seeing that fire, especially so when they associated with calls for same. A few months ago, when they were in opposition, calls that we started as a professional body, actually anchoring same, on the basis of the same factors of insecurity, national stability, sustainability, which I have enumerated on this platform. So it's not about grammar. As part of education for your viewers, we must also ensure that we don't remain on the surface of things, because that is where the misconception starts from. So when I say I terribly feel ambushed, that is what it means. But the reality must be spoken, that governments, on the basis of this same lack of understanding of the technical details, end up not doing what is right. Then we end up, the populace of Ghana, the masses, end up suffering it. There is no nation that is not built on technicality of policy. What MPs go and sit down and do? How many Ghanaians actually understand it? But that is what is supposed to bridle the economy. And so we heard all of these grammar from Puritans like Jampo, Professor Jampo, respectfully, from lawyer Martin Pebu and co. And today we are using same to deal with the inefficiency of government at the level of policy and their lack of understanding of same. And we are speaking grammar. We will speak this grammar until the grammar finds expression, okay, in the policy framework and the development of the country. So we're not going to stop. The NPP will not stop the grammar anytime soon, if that is what it means. And I'm getting troubled because just yesterday, on one of the media platforms, I've forgotten, so I can't mention it. I don't want to lie on any media. All Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia does is to speak grammar. Then today, what Dr. Botta does is to speak grammar. But one of the troubling issues with our democracy is actually the lack of common sense of a lot of us in governance spaces for not agreeing to learn, for not agreeing to appreciate technicalities. We play on the surface and play on trivialities that do not help us. Is it only the ordinary Ghanaians listening to us? I'm thinking Jubilee House must be listening to us to take ideas. Having said so, the approach still requires that holistic state of emergency, embedded in which is actually found the issue of our natural resource governance. And there is a whole law on these things I am talking about.
I'm told that Jubilee House is monitoring.
Yes, so they must monitor. And the grammar must be part of their education. The lack of education is actually the reason for the problem in this country.
Okay, now...
And that is what the intellectual wing will address.
Dr. Mona. No, your doctor here is invented comments.
Before you, because I know you are going to do your submission.
Don't let
your doctor is in invented comments. So that
let me just permit him.
He can take points.
So that because I know he's going to make his main submission. So, KOJO.
You don't know.
You know, Doc was given a broad definition of what a state of emergency is, which has to do with the coordinations of policies, all right, that seeks to protect.
No, that's not a broad definition.
And
correct that, because my initial submission was anchored on what the Constitution defines it to be.
The
I don't like the misconceptions being honest.
So let's read Article 30.
Okay. He read it.
I'll read it.
He actually read it.
No, hold on for me 1 minute.
So this coordinated attack, I don't get it.
No, I don't think any attack here is coordinated.
You read the thing.
No, hold on.
Please.
I don't think anybody here has coordinated. So I will not be fair
again on this. Yeah.
No, it will not be fair to say that we are being attacked coordinatedly. So, Daniel.
Yes, sir.
I think what he said is that when we talk about the state of emergency, you can look at it from 3 different spheres, where you are going hard with the military and shooting and killing and all those. So that's one approach. That is not the approach he is prescribing. The approach he is prescribing is a more subtle way, where you are going in with socio-economic policies to try and resolve the issue, which he believes is what all of us are discussing around the table. So he believes that we are saying the same thing, but then he sounded more technical, whilst we are probably, for want of a better term, on the peripheral of it. So not to say that what he is saying is just talking about coordination of policies, no.
So if that is what he's saying, then currently that is what the government is doing. Number one, the government has been able to reclaim all those forest reserves. They've put in a policy to be able to bring jobs to the people, to give them an alternative livelihood.
Oh, there's an alternative livelihood?
Oh, the one they went to.
What is that alternative livelihood?
The one they went to lunch. That led to
and that is alternate. So you see, these are the things we talk about.
Let's allow him.
How is that? He should explain how that constitutes alternative.
So maybe he's about.
That's why I said I want an education.
Okay, so Doc, please allow him.
What was the main purpose for that program they went to lunch? To give the people an alternative to the job, the illegal job they are doing. And that brings to them money, and that brings to them food on the table. But what I am trying to say is that, and number two, the president even mentioned the fact that we need to bring to the people technology, because they have the ability, they have the desire. So you need to be able to train them properly for them to do what they want to do, and to do it within the prescribed measure. And it went further to say that they are even taking them to Australia, to give them that technical know-how.
Actually, another misplaced.
So these are, if that is a tangent he wants to go, then these are it.
No,
but
that's
you see,
not a tangent.
But you see, if you are talking about state of emergency, the elements that can call for a state of emergency currently in Ghana. If you look at the Emergency Power Act, 1994, Act 472, it is there. And it moves hand in hand with Article 31(9). It is clear. All right? If you look at the conditions, we are talking about natural disasters. We are talking about public safety orders. When we talk about state of emergency, already the president had declared that the issue of Galamsey is of a national emergency. He made that statement. Most of these areas where the Galamsey has become so intense, with our river bodies and with our forest reserves, all of these areas have been declared security zones. How do we define a security zone? It's a no-go area for anybody. Is it not a policy to be able to protect those places? So let us not paint the picture as though there is a special definition for a state of emergency. A state of emergency is a state of emergency. If the president goes to parliament today to trigger it through the Minister for Interior, they put in the military. It's not even the police. They put in the military. It's just like when the conflict in Boko was happening and people were mixing the definition of peacekeeping and what was the other term they were using? Peace enforcement. They might look the same, but they're two very distinct.
So actually, on the
4th of August, and this is Dr. Botta, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources had a press release on this outcomes DEP, Responsible Cooperative Mining and Skill Development Program. I'll just jump to the final part of it. It says to release these objectives, the program is structured around 6 interconnected pillars. So that's where I'm sure you would want to understand or know what
you mentioned those pillars.
Cooperative mining scheme, establishment of a community-owned mining enterprises with centralized processing facilities, employing mercury-free technologies, ensuring environmentally responsible extraction while maximizing mineral blah blah blah. 2, mine support services, provision of comprehensive technical support including modern equipment, leasing, geological surveying. 3, vocational training and entrepreneurial development, delivery of skills acquisition programs in mining techniques, equipment maintenance. 4, environmental rehabilitation program. 5, agricultural value chain development. 6, community infrastructure development. So clearly there's a plan in this outcomes DEP that speaks to how government intends to properly structure and develop skills for people found in this community.
Do I have the permission to respond to that now?
1 minute.
He must
1 minute then now. 1 minute. What you want
see,
to say?
We are mixing two different situations. In fact, my response to him on this outcome was on alternative, whatever alternative economic schemes or whatever you mentioned it to be. Now, these things you are mentioning, it is not the first time. Let's be frontal on this. It's not the first time we have heard this from government. And they all know that even when my own party was in power, I don't take it kindly with them when they goof on important national issues. I am that blunt.
Your word is simple.
Are you getting it? They are not doing this. They are not doing anything different because the issue is that how do we currently weed out the excesses? This does not lead to that. You want to carry people with the taxpayers' money to Australia. What percentage of illegal miners and small-scale miners and irresponsible miners is the state going to fly by the way to Australia?
I think your point is...
So let's stop the hypocrisy and be frontal in the matter, period.
Bernard, during the engagement, a question was asked, I think, by either the BBC or one of the foreign media, and that's where we got to know that Ghana has actually received 14 West African national deportees from the US. Until then, I am not sure the media or the state had been briefed by government. Was it the right way to do this? Consider these people had already actually even been in the country.
Well, first and foremost, let me say that my position on Galamsey issues is that
we cannot play the ostrich. We as a nation must take control of what belongs to us. Any failure on that is to say that we are not willing to combat the menace. Those of you who have traveled to places like Bondi in Prestia, you will see how the community was developed, with miners giving accommodation and what have you. Today, the state is not responsible.
This happened at Nkrumah, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you understand? We cannot take what belongs to us, auction it for free, and turn around and say that those who have bought it should be responsible for engaging our young people who have completed their various courses of studies. Look, me, if we don't take and reclaim what belongs to us, let's forget any attempt. Carrying people to Australia, carrying people to Chicago, carrying people to wherever in the world will not be a solution to the problems that we face. When they come back, in fact, they are going to learn other sophisticated ways of taking what belongs to us for themselves. For themselves. I do not think, and I say this without any hold-ups, that anybody should come and tell me that private sector or private ownership can be a solution to state controls. Otherwise, GTV will be sold. Yeah. And in fact, many attempts are being made to sell GTV.
To do so.
And if you go to the private media, what level of infrastructure do they have? GTV employs the top notch. GTV has the quality. How come that those who are first, those who top in their various courses in journalism are taken by GBC, and then you are telling me that they do not have the proficiency to deliver? So if the state is telling us that they want to renege on everything and give it to so-called private sector, I am not part of that conclusion. Now, I recall not long ago that there was this hullabaloo of some people that the United States of America, I think there were two. It was still under the same John Mahama 1, so to call it, that were brought into this country, that they were described as...
The Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah. They were described as hardened terrorists. And they were released by the United States. And they were not to go back to their countries. And Ghana decided to accept them into our country. It became a major problem for us because we hadn't sent their arrival into Parliament for Parliament to agree or not to agree. If that's the case, and we went through the Guantanamo Bay 2 struggles, how is it that some other deportees from the United States of America, 14 of them this time, would be in Ghana without the knowledge of Parliament and the people of Ghana until the same vanquished media, BBC, and their likes will be reporting to us and letting us know that these people have actually been received. You see, foreign affairs must be up and doing. Comrade Ablakwa is quick to announce an ignoble agreement between Ghana and Morocco, accepting Morocco's roadmap to the problems that the people of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic are facing. That is Western Sahara. They are struggling for their true identity and their independence. They were colonized by Spain. And when Spain was leaving, it decided that, well, we are no more interested in colonialism, but we will hand over our territory to Morocco. When the people while Spain was there were fighting, Mauritania and Morocco took over. The people kept fighting, and Mauritania decided to leave. Morocco is still taking their natural wealth. I am a Pan-Africanist. I stand for the unification of Africa. But I do not think that when Spain, a colonizer, has left, an African country should go and take over. If we want to unite, let's unite. Let's not say that Morocco should go and annex Western Sahara. That one, our Minister for Foreign Affairs was able to tell us. I think that it was unacceptable. It remains unacceptable because people's determination to freedom can never be compromised on any economic, on any ground. The people of East Timor fought several years in the jungle to obtain independence. Ghana, we fought despite all the economic so-called benefits that the colonizers could give us. We did not see need to maintain the colonizer. And you do not think that the people of Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic will in any day sleep to allow Morocco to occupy them, or for Morocco to say you are an autonomous part, but you are under Morocco control. It will not happen. The whole world can agree, but the people will fight. So here we are, 14 nationals. I am for any African anywhere should be here. Ghana should become a home. But what are the steps that we ought to take so that their acceptability will not be seen that government is doing something clandestine style? It is not the first time. You see, I'm sure many of you recall, or might have read, that Kwame Nkrumah stood for the black person anywhere in the world, and that the discrimination that our own were facing in the United States and in the West, Kwame Nkrumah abhorred it. And indeed, when this was met out to his Minister for Finance, you remember, what's his name? Bedema. Bedema got to the United States. And after the flight, he was exhausted. So he wanted to have a cup of coffee before he could go into his meetings. He got there, Minister for Finance, and the people will not sell to him because he was a black man.
In fact, sorry, they sold to him and asked him to go out and take it because he was unfit to sit in there.
Imagine. And Kwame Nkrumah will not take lightly to it. And created an avenue, bringing Padmore, bringing Du Bois, bringing R.L. James, all those people, he brought them to this country. From Jamaica to France to the United States, every black person was of use to Kwame Nkrumah. And so Ghana should be the home for receiving anybody black that the West does not want. But once we have a law, which law indicates that let's pass it through Parliament, why are we still doing what happened to the Guantanamo Bay too? I'm done.
Naneo, 2 minutes on the same topic, the same question.
On the issue of this, in fact, I am still expecting the Minister of Foreign Affairs to respond to this. And until he has responded, some of us, it will be difficult for us to be able to speak to it. Why am I saying this? Because these are issues of international relations and diplomacy. And if you know how it plays, sometimes there are a lot of things that goes into it that might not be of public consumption. And so when the president had mentioned it, of course, as a student of diplomacy, we're expecting that by now, just as the transport minister responded to the issues of the excavations, excavators, the Minister of Foreign Affairs would definitely respond to it. And so we were expecting, I mean, the days are still young. And so I know Okujeto Ablakwa would give us a comprehensive write-down on what went into the 14 people using Ghana as a channel to their homes, because I know they did not come to stay. They used Ghana as a channel to their various countries. And their ECOWAS country member states, sometimes most of them travel through Ghana. But because this has to do with deportation, all right, maybe I do not want to go ahead or jump the gun. I would want to wait for the response from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then we can take it up there. But having said that, I believe that there was this issue about the decongestion of our ports, and I've sent the notice that was issued by the Ghana Ports and Harbors to your producer, and that was issued on the 22nd of August 2025, and the president's state of the presidential encounter, media encounter, happened just, I think, 2 days ago or so, and then some people wanted to make propaganda out of it. There was a whole process that it went through, and I have stated on other platforms, I said that at least the president was kind enough to give us the location of these, what I would term, for lack of a better expression, bonded warehouses where these excavators are being kept and are being manned by the military. And you and I would understand that these things are done to protect also the state interest. Because, you see, when an excavator is not just bought. If you look at the numbers, it means most companies will pre-order, and it goes through a process. And so if you would have a situation where there is a communique banning importation until certain processes are gone through, and yet we've had some that are on the way here and some that were at the port when those communiques were issued, that means we have to allow it to go through the process. When I got sad when I heard that it was the number 3 most valuable item that is being imported, I asked myself, KOJO, just behind you is the Africa map. And look at how small Ghana is. And yet we would have 3,000 excavators that are on route to Ghana. They are on the high seas already, we are told, to Ghana. Look at the size of Ghana as compared to the size of Sudan. So I'm just looking at the map behind you. Algeria, Libya, Chad. And what are we going to use these excavators for?
So I think the public notice, we would try and show it to viewers, okay? So that's the notice that was released on 22nd August.
22nd August, that's on it. I mean, if you go to the Ghana Ports and Harbors,
informing the general public of the movement of these excavators from the port. Maybe I'll try and read. The government of Ghana, in collaboration with the relevant security and regulatory agencies, has authorized the evacuation of all excavators from the port of Tema to designated military installations at Tema, Shire Hills, and Accra. This directive forms part of national efforts to regulate the importation of excavators and to ensure the safe custody of such equipment until they are duly cleared by their respective owners. The exercise will also facilitate the decongestion of the port to create additional capacity.
all consignees and their licensed agents are hereby informed that 1, the established customs clearance procedure at the port remains in force. 2, upon completion of the blah, 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 stakeholders are kindly advised to take note of this directive and comply accordingly. The cooperation of all concerned is solicited in the interest of national security and trade facilitation, issued by Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority on 22nd August 2025. Okay, gentlemen, I have only 2 minutes to end, and then I just have 2 minutes. So, yes, you'll be the one to speak last, and right after.
2 minutes is gone.
Don't worry,
it won't go.
You will speak.
I'll give it to you.
You will speak.
It is important for us not to play politics with some of these sensitive issues. But the very final one, after having control over our mineral mines, we have stated in the Great Transformational Plan that there is the need to set up a legislative measure that would create that enabling environment for job creation that would help us process not less than 60% of what we mine, whether it is gold, whether it's bauxite, whether it's diamond, so that we add value. Right. Until we are able to do that, we would have issues. And for us to also push to have a seat on the table for pricing for gold.
Because I see you have a lot of movement for change, so I'll bring you next week. Doc, the final word.
But Doc is a very good friend of mine. Yeah, and he's a brother.
So the actual issue, and I want to associate completely with the position especially said by my senior brother, Bernard Mona, on this troubling issue of these 14 people we heard of. You see, the reality is that, and like he mentioned, he's a student of international relations. I am actually. My PhD is in that domain. Okay, and
because we are all
yes, and
I know you like book.
The truth of the matter is that, you see, if you look at the international instruments regulating that space, the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations 1963, Vienna Convention Diplomatic Relations 1961, yes. The conventions regulating the intake or rejection otherwise of refugees, they all converge at the point that the receiving state must actually consent through legislation. That is the reality. So anything the Foreign Affairs must have done, I agree with you.
Through ratification or through legislation?
Yeah, ratification is actually done by them.
Okay.
Are you getting it? And in so
yes, of course, but we needed to declare.
So the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I agree, have a lot to tell us. And this should have been told us not necessarily by press conference, but by our representation in Parliament. That is the reasoning behind that move. So this is what happens when incompetence in certain technical domains reign. And that is what we are seeing in this government. It was under the same government we saw the Guantanamo Bay people, and the same mistake has been repeated.
Okay, so I think your point is well.
KOJO, let there be clarity.
Viewers,
no, there's no until. These are the things that happen.
So I think
it is an act of incompetence.
Gentlemen.
My MP would have been told, and it
gentlemen. Okay, viewers, thank you very much. Let's allow the conversation continue in our homes. Let the heated debates continue in our homes. Right after we go off, we will discuss here. This has been brought to us proudly, gentlemen. Your viewers can hear you, so please let me end it. This has been proudly sponsored by Bank of Africa. Bank of Africa understands that we all need some financial quick fix every now and then, whether it is school fees, replacing old refrigerator, or fixing the car engine to get back on the road. The quick fix loan package was made with you in mind. Seize the opportunity and let your tough times make way for that soft life you have been dreaming about. Visit any Bank of Africa branch near you today and enjoy unbeatable or meetably low interest rates, flexible terms, and straightforward application process. Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. Well, the discussion this morning has been very fruitful. We're joined in studio by HAMZA SUHUYINI, a member of the National Democratic Congress's communication team. We also have Nanaya SARPONG, a political assistant to Alan Kyerematen, Movement for Change. Bernard Mona,
is in here. Earlier we were joined by Professor SIKANKU, an associate professor of political communication and media studies and the dean of faculty of journalism, and my brother Dr. Buta, who is a lecturer at the UPSA and a former deputy national organizer of the New Patriotic Party. Thank you. Nana, why are you laughing?